Hello, everyone. I am Michael A. Hawker, also known as the XAML Llama, and welcome to the WinUI community call. I hope you are having a great day, and hopefully everyone can hear me well. So without further ado, we will dive right in. So we have a few things to cover today. We've got a recap of our build info. So if you didn't follow along with what all the announcements and info we had to share with build, we've got you covered here. And hopefully it'll be a good recap for anyone that went to build as well and just get a summary of everything that we wanted to share with you. And then we're going to be diving into the 1.6 experimental 1 release that dropped yesterday. And dive into some of the new features and options available for you to try and play with in that release, and then go into our normal discussion and Q&A. So if you are new to the WinUI community call, then welcome. We have these roughly about quarterly around this time normally, and our next one we're going to have on September 11th in the fall. And we might be trying to look at something in between now and then as well. We're looking at how we increase our cadence a little bit with these based on the feedback we got in the last survey. Thank you, everyone, for filling out that survey. That's really helpful to us and the team to understand how effectively we're working with you and the community and everyone that we love to chat with our developers. And so we might be looking to try and have another call in July as well, aligning with the experimental 2 release that we talked about at build and the new AI features that will be coming as part of that release. So be sure to stay tuned and follow us on X, Twitter, or join the GitHub community and look at the discussions there. We make sure to post announcements about all these types of calls and things in those places. If you have any questions for us today, as we're talking about anything on the call or related to other stuff around WinUI or WPF today, since we have some WPF guests, as I'll talk about, as I mentioned, or I forgot to mention in the previous call out to our build recap. We talked a lot about WinUI and WPF at build, so we have a member from the WPF team here as well to join us to help us with our build recap. So anyway, as I was mentioning, if you have any YouTube, any questions, use the YouTube chat, and we will get to those later today during our Q&A time at the end. And hopefully, if we don't get to your question, not worry, we'll try and follow up with you on GitHub or post your question on GitHub, and that's a good way to get in touch with the team. All right, so if you are completely new and not sure what WinUI is, it's what we talk about here. It is our modern UX framework for working on the latest hardware and devices with great fluent styling, accessibility built in, different input modalities, all those great pieces. You can use it with .NET, C++, and there's lots of apps already using it, including things like the Windows Shell, File Explorer, and even powers other frameworks as well, such as .NET MAUI and React Native for Windows when they're running on Windows. And so when we talk about mostly here, of course, is the latest version of this, which is WinUI 3. It's built on top of the Windows App SDK. It's all decoupled from the operating system, so it's easier for you to ensure that your application is going to run exactly the same across different versions of Windows 10 and 11, from Windows 10 RS5 and up. And then if you ever see anything about WinUI 2, that's the previous generation, which was really a library of controls. So WinUI 3 encompasses the entire UX. Just might have had a blip in my internet or something. Not sure what happened there, but hopefully it's all good. If you have been following the Windows Developer blog, then we just posted a blog the other day that all talked about Microsoft Photos and their journey from migrating from UWP to the Windows App SDK. And so it's a great read and deep dive into the work that they did to migrate their application, as well as the benefits they were seeing in performance after the change. So it's a great read, great deep dive. I'd recommend checking that out on the Windows Developer blog. And so without further ado, I'm going to bring in Chigusa and Akshay to give us a recap of Build. Welcome, Chigusa and Akshay, to the call. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you, Michael. And good morning, good evening, and especially Akshay. Good evening.
Yes, thanks for joining us.
Okay.
You've got your microphone muted though, so we can't hear you. There you go.
Yeah, thank you. And welcome everyone to this call. Chigusa, you can continue.
Yep. Next, please. Yeah, so I hope you were able to watch some of the videos, but we were able to represent Microsoft Windows native development with the WinUI 3 and WPF in this build. And I just wanted to flash this picture to show you that Windows basically investing in all of the technology from Windows native to web. And we really focused on these two platforms that you all care about. So next, please. And we were able to present some of those talks, and they are available online today. So if you missed it, please go check them out. The very first one talks about the differences or the strengths of WinUI and WPF. And the middle one talks about how you'd make the great apps using the WinUI and WPF. And then the last one is about using the AI through Windows App SDK, and it showcased the WinUI app that was used to demo. So I'm very excited about those talks. And also there was a demo that wasn't recorded, which you are going to see here today. So I'm very excited about that. So this slide was like the basically the key slide for you to remember. So for Windows native development, WinUI is a great choice if you are starting new or don't know where to start. WinUI allows your app to be both visually and functionally aligned to the Windows system. And if you need to support multiple languages and CPUs, WinUI is a great choice. And modern UI, it supports the modern UI, so it has very flexibilities and usability supported on that. So WinUI is good at those things. And whereas WPF has a very rich ecosystem, as you all know, and it's very stable, has lots of tutorials and documentation, supports C# very, very deeply, and it has, and great news is that it has introduced the modernization so that, sorry, I have something going off on my desk, distracted me. So modernizing the existing investment through the theming that Akshay is going to talk about. And more importantly, Windows App SDK is going to be something you can use for both WinUI and WPF. As a matter of fact, you can use it for any Win32, but we're focusing on those two, and take advantage of some of the new APIs that we will be introducing, including the AI. So remember this slide when somebody asked you, like, should I be using WinUI or WPF or something else? This is what you should remember. Next, please. And we also gave call to action in the talk. And basically, we have gallery apps, which looks like each other. So WinUI and WPF have each gallery. And very exciting to me is the WPF gallery looks exactly the WinUI. So with the great theming support, that looks very modern. And also the Dev Center documentation, we updated it to make sure you understand what I was talking about in the previous slide, what platform you would use, WinUI or WPF or some other platforms that the Microsoft provide. So this is a one-stop shop for you to find out about those information. So please visit often. Some of the new information might be shared there that you might not be aware of if you are not paying attention to like tweet and stuff like that, which we will also use to communicate those updates. Next, please. sorry, go back, please. Okay, so I did mention the gallery. And one thing that I'm very excited about is that we took basically Windows theming, Windows 11 theming, and then introduced to WPF. And I want actually to talk to that because I'm very, very excited about that.
Thank you, Chigusa. Thanks a lot. So, folks, quick introduction. My name is Akshay, and I'm a product manager on the WPF team. This is the first time I'm in this community, so thank you for having me here, Chigusa and folks. Really excited to be part of this. So, quick recap from the build. Like Chigusa is saying, in terms of our investments in WPF, one of the key areas for us is the modernization of the framework. So, we have been getting some feedback that the applications would need to look more fluent, need to look modern, some more modernized, and we need to help developers create more visually appealing applications. So at Build, we showcase some of the Windows 11 theming work from in the demo that Chigusa was doing in Build. And what's exciting about it is the style of the WPF control and the look and feel of the application that you get. All this is part of the .NET Preview 4, which is already released. And with this, the WPF developers can now create fluent visual apps. So like Chigusa was saying, we have created these sample gallery applications to demonstrate how a particular control can be used inside the application and how the control would look like and behave. So you can visit the links aka.ms WPF gallery or aka.ms WinUI gallery to learn more about these controls. We have also updated the dev center with all the relevant information and links. So that's something great on the modernization of the application. Along with this, on the WPF side, we are also working on addressing some of the other developer feedback. For example, with .NET 9, we are addressing the hyphen-based ligature support, which was one of the long-pending developer asks. That has been fixed now. We are also making performance improvements by enabling hardware acceleration in RDP mode. That's again something which is out, but now we are making it on by default. So exciting things are happening. And with this, I once again want to reinforce the fact that we are working and we are committed to serve our community better. And from WPF, more features and capabilities will be coming in future. So thank you. This was all from WPF and transferring the control to cover more from the WinUI side.
Thank you, Akshay. So one thing that I want to emphasize is that we're working together as a XAML technology. And actually, can you talk about the one thing that I'm excited about, which is the same names that you use for the colors and things?
Yes, that's something because we have been getting this feedback that there are two frameworks from Microsoft, and in terms of helping our developers better, what the two applications that you see, the names of the controls and some other things are like quite similar in nature. So you can actually use the similar names in there, so that there will be more parity across the two in terms of your in terms of like implementing those things. So that's another thing, and that's one way the two frameworks are kind of coming close together.
Great. Thank you very much.
Do try out the apps.
Yeah. Next, please. Okay, so going back to focusing on the WinUI. So one thing that we did, and we're also excited about doing this, is that we did the work to make sure that the developers know that WinUI is the UI framework that you should be using instead of UWP, because this item that is selected right now used to point to UWP, which is the wrong thing to do. So we updated it so that people who are new to Windows know what framework to use to create Windows apps. And this change is already available with the VS 17.10. And so WinUI is now the default for people to create Windows app native apps. Next, please. And then we also did an update to make sure that the templates for WinUI shows up in a higher priority. So previously, those items were just buried on the bottom of the list. So we made sure that they show up on top. And also, we made an improvement so that when you do file new project, what you create produces the default that is great. So including the title bar, which has the theming support, and it has the snap assist support, all those things, additional things that you needed to code before. Now it's going to be built in. This is going to be available in 1.6. So it's not available just yet. And Dom is going to be demoing some of this later. Yep. So next to Mike Crider.
Yeah, thanks, Chigusa. Thanks, Akshay. I know we'll have you back for the Q&A later. I've seen a couple questions come in the chat, so we'll try and bubble those up afterwards. But thank you so much for giving us that recap, and hopefully gave a good insights for everyone on what they needed to know from Build.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let me bring on Mike to the call. Welcome, Mike. How are you doing today?
Thanks. Good. Hello, everyone. Mike Crider. I'm here to chat about the 1.6 Experimental 1, which we released just yesterday. If you haven't done so already, please go check it out. We'd love your feedback on it. Get to talk about some of the top features that we have in it. The first one is C# native ahead of time compilation support. This is just the first level of functionality. It should be enough that you can actually get your app running, be able to check it out, see the experience. We have additional work coming later in 1.6 to make it easier to use, provide more warnings if you've got potential edge cases and such. But the base functionality is there. And we have a little bit more that I'll talk about in a minute about some of the improvements that you can see in your app when using it. There's a new title bar control. There's multiple aspects of this. Part of it is to be able to have more advanced things inside of your title bar, such as you can see in this picture here. But it's also some simple things that many apps would want, like being able to get the default light or dark theme working correctly inside of your title bar. We'll have a demo coming up about that. Another feature is improved tab view tear out. So what we have today is tabs tear out using drag and drop, and you can get an experience that works. But we've got some new tab tear out that actually provides a much more browser-like experience that you would see in Edge or Chrome, for example, which provides a lot of advanced capabilities in your tab tear out. We'll have a demo of that up ahead, but I do want to mention that at this point, one of the bonus features that we get with this tab tear out implementation is it doesn't use drag and drop functionality. And as a result, it actually works when your app is running elevated. So this might be particularly helpful for certain situations. Like I said, we'll see a little demo of that in a few minutes. Next up, we have unsealed the items wrap grid control. So we know unsealing is something that's been on our backlog for years. Many of you have asked for it for a long time. We want to get everything unsealed. One of the big challenges has been how do we do it to ensure that it's not a breaking change. This is the very first step that we're doing where we think this is a good control to get started with so that we can see the experience. It's the only one that we expect to have in 1.6. We think it's not a breaking change. There's a lot of testing still that we need to do and getting feedback from you as well to ensure that it works. But hopefully this is the first step towards being able to unseal everything and allow you to subclass any control that you want. So we're really excited about this first step. Next up, we've got a new wrap mode for Pips Pager. Basically, it can go now between the first and the last item, wrapping around at the ends. It's a fairly small feature, but it's also one that has been requested as, why isn't this obvious feature there? So excited to have that new one in. And last up here, we've got a more customizable ratings control. This is basically moving, some of the hard-coded styles from ratings into, theme resources and bindings, such that you can do things like having your stars be smaller or bigger than they otherwise would be, space them out more, whatever kinds of changes you want to make, just so that you can customize it to get the experience that you want. So those are the big things that we have there. Next up, we've got a little video here for AOT. So basically you can see here, this is a sample app that we put together as a demo for Build. And on the right side, oops, did it only play once? On the right side is the AOT version of the app, basically launching at about half the time as the non-AOT version on the left. So exciting to see that, launch performance difference that you can get with AOT. There's also a significant reduction in the size of the app package. The app package is 8 times smaller if it's using the framework package version, or 2 times smaller if it's running in self-contained mode. So certainly, for this example, can have a huge impact on the app. So excited to see that advancement, and hopefully you'll be able to see similar results in your apps. Oops, you're muted, Michael.
Silly me having a hardware mic too. Thanks, Mike, for all the great information on the latest release that just shipped for the experimental, so people can play with it today. So hopefully they can give us some feedback on these new toys and let us know how it goes. And so with that, we will find out more about Title Bar and all the new features there. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
Welcome, Dom. How are you doing today?
Doing well, man. How are you?
Good. Well, I'll let you take it away and tell everyone about Title Bar.
Perfect. Okay, so hello, everybody. I'm Dom Giannato. I'm going to show you our improvements to the WinUI title bars in this version of WinApp SDK. We demoed this at Build, but if you weren't able to attend, then you can see it now. So these changes include changes to the default title bar, as well as a new component, a new XAML control that can give developers more control over their title bar's appearance while writing fewer lines of code. So we'll start by looking at the default system title bar experience. So previously, when you were developing a WinUI app from scratch, you'd see a Win32 title bar on top that wouldn't adapt to theming changes. So it would remain in light mode even when you set your system or apps to use dark mode in settings. So we've now added that theme adaptation that is sent to all title bar scenarios in WinUI, default or custom, which users will be able to enable or disable for the system title bar with an API on the app window object. So you can see this is the API. It's a little bit wordy, but it works. Default title bar should match app mode theme. So just added that to the code behind, and I'll show you what's going on. So we've got our normal system title bar. I'm going to change the default app mode to dark, and you can see that the title bar adapts to that. Even if I close the app and reopen it, we are still in dark mode, so the title bar will remain adapted. I can, this is something of note, I can even use docking support on these caption buttons, since these are still controlled by the system and whatever title bar experience you're going to use. So if you want just a little more customization than this, so like say you'd like to change the title or the colors of the title bar further than just adapting it to the system theming, you can leverage our custom title bar implementation on the app window. We can do some basic operations that can still make your app your own. If you wanted to implement some theming to match the aesthetic of the rest of your app, change the color of the title text, whatever, there's app window APIs or APIs on the app window title bar object that can let you do that. But the real meat of this discussion and a common practice for apps all over Windows is to customize the title bar for the scenarios your app needs. So this can involve complex UI changes or something as simple as adding a back button. As you can see, this is an example of what I'm talking about. You've got a title bar that's pretty much like it's an extension of the client area of the app, even though the caption buttons are controlled by the system. So we've just got a back button here and a title in the case of settings, but you can customize this even further. So previously in WinUI, if you wanted to do any customizations, you'd had to take full control of the title bar and manually take care of all aspects of it. So the developer would need to, for example, manually set the drag regions and implement code to update them every time the size of the window changed. You had to deal with input non-client pointer source objects and poke holes through it in order to ensure that you could still click inside elements on your title bar, like a search bar or something like that. We've got very clear evidence that this was too complicated and it generated too many bugs in our customers' apps. So to simplify this, we're introducing a title bar XAML control. So this control makes it easy to add custom elements to your title bar without having to deal with all that legwork. So I'll demonstrate by adding some code here. I'm just going to copy and paste some layout stuff. So we've got extends content and the title bar is true. And then I'm just changing the height of the caption buttons to better illustrate this concept. And then I will also add some layout code into our XAML. There we go. And then I'll compile this, make sure it shows up. So some of the basic elements, more basic elements you may want to customize in your title bar are included as properties. You can see that this is the XAML control, very simple, just called title bar. And I'll show you what we've got here. So you can add a title. You can change the title right here, just like you can change it up here. A subtitle for if your app is in a certain release state. I've got beta right here. And then a couple elements are a couple common elements that are typically in the same spot, i.e. a back button or a pane toggle button are just set as Boolean triggers on the title bar properties. So you can see we can still drag the window around, and we can also click on these elements right here, which is quite nice. We can also set things like the source for the app's icon image. We won't do that here in the interest of time, but I want to let you know that that feature is available. We can do even more things with this new control, which I will show you now. Build that. Okay, so we've also got some areas of the title bar that you can add XAML elements to. You can see that right here, but I'll focus on this window really quick. So we've got this content area in the center. I've like a common pattern in certain apps is to have a search box in the center of the title bar and then a person picture on the right side. So I've done that. But you can add any sort of XAML elements that you want to this control. I've just chosen to add an auto suggest box here. So yeah, right in between the opening and closing tags, you have the content area, which is in the center. And then we have also defined a footer area between these title bar.footer tags, and we put a person picture inside those so that that will show up on the right. And here it is. You can see this is super easy to add these elements to the title bar. We still got drag regions. We can click on these elements. We can click in the search bar, type whatever we want, and you can see that everything is here. And I'll also demonstrate that if you change the system theming, all of these elements will adapt to that. Not sure why I closed there. Classic demo problem. But yeah, you can see that all these elements have adapted to that theming change. So overall, we've made life much easier for standard customizations that are desired by most developers when it comes to customizing your WinUI title bar. And right now, I think we can switch back to the PowerPoint so I can talk a little bit more in depth. Just show you a couple diagrams here. So yeah, this is what I've was showing you in the demo. You've got all these elements that I've talked about: header area that's on the left, content area that's in the middle, footer on the right, caption buttons that are still controlled by the system, and then we've got all those elements that you can see: the back button, the pane toggle, icon, title, subtitle. All of those are properties, and then everything in the content and footer areas you can determine, you can add yourself just as XAML elements. And as you can see, we've got a diagram of drag regions and interactive regions. Just again to note, this is something that you would have to do before manually. So you would have to define these drag regions in your app code. Now with this title bar control, all of these things are defined for you. So all of the purple regions will be interactive, and then you can still drag the app in the other space. We can go to the next slide. And yeah, this is the difference between a simpler, maybe system title bar. You can see on the default, you've just got the icon and the title. And then our custom title bars that you can add pretty much whatever you want to. And I believe that is all I have to say.
Thanks so much, Dom, for giving us that overview of title bar. There's been lots of questions in the chat. We'll see if we can try and bubble a couple up to you in our Q&A section coming up here in a few minutes. But thanks so much.
No problem.
All right, and Luke unfortunately couldn't be here with us today, but he recorded a demo quickly of the tab tearing feature. So I'm going to share that with you here. So I'll leave that to that.
Hi everyone, I'm here today to demo the tab tearout feature, which was recently checked in and will be available in the next version of Windows App SDK. Before I demo the feature itself, I'd like to show by way of comparison what tab tearout currently looks like in Windows App SDK. I'll use for the sake of example File Explorer. File Explorer does support tab tearout, but it uses the WinRT drag and drop paradigm, and as a result, it's not as fully featured as it is in Chromium. For example, if I want to tear out the Downloads tab, the only visual feedback I get is the tab visual itself, and a new window is not created until I drop the tab. So you can't do anything like tearing out and maximizing or arranging the window in one motion. Similarly, if I want to join the Downloads tab back with the other tabs, the joining itself doesn't happen until I drop the tab in the other window. For comparison, here is a test application that uses the new tab tearout feature in Windows App SDK, which uses the move size loop for a much more seamless tab tearout experience. If I click and drag on document 1, I immediately get a new window that's being dragged without needing to first release the pointer. I can rejoin this with the other tabs by dragging back over the other tab view in one fluid motion without releasing the pointer. And since this is using the move size loop, I can also tear out and maximize the window in one motion or arrange the window. Hi everyone.
All right, and that was the new changes coming in 1.6 experimental for the tab tearing out. I know there's some, I think, more work going on in that area as well. So it's great to see some improvements to that experience, because I know that's a big thing that a lot of different apps are trying to do. And so without further ado, we're going to dive into our discussion Q&A time. We have a few queued up already from our call for questions on GitHub, and just also from some feedback and questions we've got from Build. So I'm going to pull in some folks here to talk about that. And then if you have any questions, we've been pulling up a few on YouTube. We've seen lots of great chatter and discussion and questions. So we'll see how many we can get to those today. And if we don't get to your question, don't worry. We will try to follow up, especially if you want to join us on GitHub later. So let's see. Our first question is going to be from Build. And we actually have Chris and Jeffrey from the team that worked on these demos and things from Build. So I'm going to pull them in here to the call so that we can learn a little bit more. Welcome, Chris and Jeffrey, to the call. How are you doing today?
Hi, everyone.
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yes, we are all good. Welcome. Thanks for joining. So did you want to tell people a little bit about the demo code and what they can find currently and in the future?
Sure. So we had a great time at Build, and we really enjoyed meeting people and being able to get their feedback. And one of the things that was really important is everything that we showed on the stage, we wanted to be able to share out and make fully public. So today we're doing the first drop of that. We've created the release 1.6 experimental 1 branch that has the WinApp that's dependent on WinApp SDK 1.6 experimental 1. And we put in our WPF, we've put in our first drop of code that shows using Lottie and the helmet inside WinUI 3. And so we're going to then follow it up with, by the next community call, our goal is to have the WPF samples. So you can show Lottie inside WPF, and also to have the Petzold C++ and C# samples. So we're going to continue to get that out. One of the things that honestly would help us a bunch is there's a lot of GitHub repos. And so please send us feedback about like for example, how much should we prioritize putting everything in one common place so that it's easy to go and get access to everything? Whereas how much do you want us to be putting things in different repos and then cross-connecting them and stuff like that? So we have a lot of code in the Windows app ecosystem and trying to make it easy for people to understand how to be able to build great Windows apps.
Thanks, Jeffrey. I know you wanted to follow up as well on some of the info on screen graph, so we have that breakdown as well.
Yeah, so one of the questions that we got from a bunch of people at Build was, hey, WPF has 3D rendering, C node that we're showing is 3D rendering. What's the diff? And so the short of it is that the WPF code base is great. The 3D rendering code in there is about 15 years old. And so it just doesn't have all the latest integration with the latest hardware and stuff that the C node stuff has, which is significantly newer. The key things is that WPF is DX9 based and it has per vertex lighting and everything that means. The C node stuff is D3D11 based and it has per pixel lighting and then allows us to do a lot of newer functionality. All the stuff that we showed in the C node stuff, just like in Build, is available down level to Windows 10, RS5, and Server 2019 without any OS updates. So it gives you the latest 3D rendering capabilities on all the versions of Windows.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I will let you two go for now, and I'll pull you back when we have our general Q&A in case people have more questions from build demos and scene graph stuff later.
Cool. Thanks, Michael.
Yeah. All right, let's get to our next question here. So we actually had a question before we released about 1.6 and being able to play with native AOT. As we mentioned today, it's available in the experimental 1 release that dropped yesterday. So please try these features out. Try using native AOT and let us know if anything's not working. And we will be moving more towards having that in our 1.6 stable release later this year. And then there's a question about dependency property speed. I'm going to bring Mike back here to help us answer this question. Hi, Mike. Welcome back.
Thanks. So yeah, certainly, for this one, this is a great example where we appreciate the community's efforts in helping to investigate and highlight issues and areas for improvement. For the particular dependency property speed, in general, we haven't seen that pop up as a area of importance for most of the apps that we've actually been investigating. So we aren't focusing in this area specifically at the moment, and instead working on other things like ART and other general performance improvements. The issue is still active. It's still on our radar for us to look at in more detail. One thing that is worth noting is, not just because of this, but in general, it's good to avoid dependency properties where dependency properties aren't specifically needed. And :bind is one of the things that can be helpful for avoiding it when the expense of a dependency property isn't required.
Great. All great info and tips, and great to know that it's something that's we're always thinking of performance these days, and which area do we focus on first is always a challenge. But yeah, the native AOT has been the one that we've been focused on currently, and we've seen great improvements with. So it's really exciting to see the work that goes into this every single release, and that every release gets better and better in terms of performance. Great. And so then we had a question here for template binding properties and other changes for styling. I know this is another kind of general area, and looking back at this issue, like some of these have been addressed over time. There's probably ones that we've missed. It's really a general bucket of stuff, but like you were sharing with us, Mike, in the 1.6 experimental release, there's improvements to ratings control, which makes styling and adjusting it easier. So it's always something that's on our mind, something we're trying to improve our processes around to not let as many of these slip through the cracks. And so I think, I'm going to take a flag on this to try and look at this particular issue, see what's left and remaining in here, and learn a little bit from there. But I think if folks are generally hitting any sort of styling, theming, customization options for controls, just open up a new issue on GitHub. There's so many particulars to every different scenario for these that just having an issue per one is going to help us better track and understand and address these and pick these up in the future. So I think that's the best advice moving forward.
Absolutely.
Great. So I'm going to start pulling other people here, and we can answer questions from YouTube. Welcome back, Chigusa and Scott, Chris, Jeffrey, Dom. Welcome all to the Q&A time. All right, let's see what questions we have here. So I think our first question is about window closing.
Yeah, so I'll take this one. Certainly, there's been additional work that we've done for finding and fixing some leaks involved for window closing, places where we're forgetting to release something or where there's a reference loop causing a problem. So there have been additional improvements in this area. I'm sure there are more problems in there. Sometimes it's individual controls have particular reference count leaks or whatever. So, basically, we need to have examples of the places that are problems so that we can continue to dig in and get all these issues fixed.
Awesome, thanks. And then our next question is around plans to fix window sizing in WinUI 3.
I'll take that. So we recognize that there's a bunch of feedback on that, and that's just because we've been staging the work. So we are working at improving that experience. Right now we focused on child windows, and we're going to be doing work to have better integration with top level windows, which will improve the window sizing experience.
Great, thanks, Jeffrey. And then this was another question that came up earlier when we were talking about native AOT and if that needed to eliminate the need for obfuscation.
Yeah, I can take that one. Yes and no. I think Sergio and I kind of gave conflicting answers. I agree with Sergio. It doesn't. In the end, it makes it far more difficult to decompile the native image, but it doesn't eliminate entirely the ability to do that. But when we think about what an obfuscator is supposed to do or what it achieves, it's very easy to decompile IL into working C#. That's a facsimile of the original source so that you can single step through the debugger. Visual Studio does that automatically if you don't have a PDB available. An obfuscator is needed to protect IP because of that. So native AOT produces a single native image, and it's just far more difficult to decompile it, particularly if you don't have a PDB. So now you're dealing with assembly language, and there's tools out there that will try to generate C++ from that. But I think it's effectively obsoleted an obfuscator with native AOT.
Great, thanks. So let's see, there's some other questions in the chat here. We've been getting lots of questions, so we're going through and finding out the ones that we can answer here for you today. If we don't get to your question, don't worry. Follow up with us on our GitHub discussion or on GitHub as a new discussion or issue, depending on what type of level of question you have or issue. And we'll be sure we can try and get to those with the team as well. So, all right, we have a whole bunch of questions related to title bar. I'm going to start with the theming one. And I think, Chigusa, you were saying that you could help us answer about the tall motif for the title bar.
Yeah, so I just want to emphasize the fact that Fluent design is not just about the visual, so it's also functional, right? So if you think about the title bar, it's very short, the traditional title bar. It's very short. When we start putting in buttons and things like that, it's not touchable. So when you want to put some items in there, you want that to be taller, and that's where the direction we are going forward. But if you have a need for the shorter title bar as of today, that's the default. So just make sure that you give the right interaction model up there. So that's the Fluent design.
Great. Thanks, Chigusa. And then we have another question around, I think these are both kind of similar, but I'll start with one first from Arthur about the close maximize buttons following the dark light theme.
Yes.
Great. It's a short answer. Yeah. So I think that's the goal, right, Dom, with these changes is that basically everything you get everything out of the box for default, so you don't have to think about it. Correct?
Right.
Yeah. I think that was a great. There's some questions about that when you were showing like the really long property name. Is that's really there if you want to turn it off, which I don't know why you would want to, but it's there. But it should be on by default once 1.6 ships. Correct?
I think so.
Yeah. If not, that's the feedback the community is giving us. So it's a good note for us to know that it should just work. So that's great. And then related, there's a question about the, I think this is same to the title bar, to the caption buttons as well.
Yeah, so we can't, that work hasn't been done for this release, but we have heard a lot of feedback on people want to be able to hide and show caption buttons. I think we're going to want to work on that in the future.
Awesome. And then I think this is it's calling out the community toolkit, but it's also just about like the customization aspects of the title bar. So I know one thing that we were talking about just in like, did you maybe want to talk, Dom, a little bit about like what does the title bar take anything away from your ability to customize the title bar with this new work that you've done?
Yeah, so the whole thing about the title bar control is that it is optional, but it does make things a little bit easier for people who don't want to do, like if you had any sort of customization work in your apps before, you can still do that. And you don't have to use this new title bar control. It's just kind of if you want to do some of those basic scenarios a little bit easier, you can.
Hey, Dom, can you also add that all the title bar stuff that we're doing, it's fully available in C++ and C# because it's part of, it's part of the base WinApp SDK thing. It's not a .NET only feature.
Yeah. And then that's a great point, Jeffrey, too. Like we base this work off of stuff that we did in the community toolkit with the title bar as well. And the community toolkit, of course, right now just ships with C# support because it's all written in C#. And so by pulling it in here to the platform and WinUI, we now give that greater access to not only the existing C# developers that we had with the community toolkit, but C++ developers as well. So and it does everything kind of automatically for you here as part of that work. It's been really great to see another control that we know that everyone is goes and works on improving their app's experience with title bars, and now it's something that is just baked in and makes it super simple for folks to customize to their needs. All right, I think there was a question for Akshay, which I had missed bringing on. Let me bring him back here. Welcome back, Akshay. And let me see. I think it was, oops, not the. I think there was a question about WPF community calls. I don't have the start here for us to pull up on the stream, but maybe you want to comment on that? Yeah.
Yes. So we are looking at more ways to interact more frequently and more closely with the developer community for WPF specifically. So definitely we are looking at more ways we can interact, and a community call is on the radar. We don't have a set date yet, but yeah, we have to work through some logistics and see when we can do it. So hopefully soon.
Yeah. I found your response here in the chat, so I'll put that up on screen. But yeah, it's definitely something we're thinking about. I know there's a question earlier in the chat too about like, last fall there was talk about ending the WinUI community call, and we heard all the feedback from everyone like, no, don't end the WinUI community call, and so that's why we've continued to do them here this year. This is our second one, of course. We had the one back in March. So we're ensuring we're listening to everyone in the community, and the feedback that we're getting is a pulse and insight into how we're connecting with folks. And definitely this is always a topic about like how much can we outreach and what are we doing, and we're looking for ways, like not just for WinUI but for WPF, and following up on the call from the fall when we were talking with other folks related to Windows development and Windows developer tools. So these are all things we're thinking about and investing and trying to understand how we best engage as a team and an organization to connect to our community and do these types of calls, not just for WinUI, but for WPF and maybe other areas as well in the future. So it's all stuff that we're looking at. If there's these types of things, if they're useful to you, let us know, give us feedback. I'll be putting a survey link up here shortly when we wrap up. And so filling that survey out really helps us and gives us insight into what you found useful with these calls, where we can improve, and what you want to know about.
Hey, Michael, can I add something to that?
Yeah, sure,
So,
please.
Just because I see a bunch of things going by, and I just want to add a little bit more on that. One of the big things that we tried to convey in our build talk is that the functionality that we add in WinApp SDK is available for all frameworks, for WinUI, for WPF, and for Qt, whatever you're using, right? And so more and more, we're putting functionality there. And we think that that's a great way for WPF to pick up new functionality. One of the things that will be there is the Copilot runtime that I believe is on track for experimental 2. And that's how WPF features would get access to those Windows Copilot AI features. You know, through WinApp SDK, we're not creating UI framework specific connections as much as we're making things available. And with things like CSWinRT and other projections, we're making it a natural consumption environment across different languages and directly in the UI framework. So we think that this is actually a great thing for the Windows app ecosystem.
Yeah, no, that's great, Jeffrey. And yeah, I had mentioned initially when we're talking about the next community call that's scheduled for September 11th, is that we're also looking into trying to maybe do something in July around when 1.6 experimental 2 ships to talk more specifically about the Copilot runtime and all those AI features that we were mentioning about at Build as well. So that's something that we're looking at. We didn't have a date quite figured out at this time or knowing exactly what we're going to talk about, but again, be sure to follow us on X or Twitter, our Windows UI handle, or subscribe to the GitHub discussions, and you'll be sure to find out about if we plan any extra presentations or calls or anything like this to get in the loop. Great. I think we're reaching the end of our time here, so I want to make sure that I got to the survey link. If we didn't get to your question, I'm sorry we didn't have a chance to do so, but do follow up with us on GitHub or in the survey. But really joining us on GitHub and starting discussions or adding to our community call discussions is really the best way to engage with us on the team. And let me pull up our survey link here slide and put that in there. So, and I'll put that in chat as well. So aka.ms/WinUI/survey if you can hop on there and give us some feedback about this call, how it went, what you enjoyed from this, and what else you might like to see. Just really helps us understand how all these go and what things you like to see and how we can better plan for these moving forward. So I think that's going to be about all the time we have for today. Really thanks everyone, Mike, Chigusa, Scott, Chris, Jeffrey, Dom, Akshay for joining us here on the call today and giving us all this great info. And we will see you all next time.